Ethan and Rachel had lived in their quiet Vermont neighborhood for nearly a decade. Their two-story house sat near the end of a tree-lined cul-de-sac, where the wind often carried the scent of pine and distant chimneys. From the outside, they looked like the perfect couple, mature, calm, and always in sync. But behind the gentle smiles and quiet dinners, something had changed between them. Love was still there, yes, but quieter now. They didn't argue much. They didn't laugh as often either. Most days felt like routine, comfortable but almost empty. Then came the moving van. It was early September when the house next door finally sold. The neighbors had moved away months ago, and no one really expected new faces before winter. But one afternoon, Ethan looked out the window and saw a young couple unloading boxes. A man with a messy bun and rolled-up sleeves. A woman in jeans and a soft yellow sweater. They looked happy, excited, like this was their first real home. That evening, Rachel baked a tray of banana bread, something she hadn't done in a while, and walked over with it. Grace answered the door with a glowing smile. "Hi, I'm Rachel. We live next door," she said, handing over the bread. Grace's eyes lit up. "That's so sweet. I'm Grace, and my husband's name is Tyler. We just moved from upstate New York." Soon, the husbands met. Tyler was friendly, full of stories, and seemed genuinely interested in getting to know them. Over the next few days, Ethan and Rachel found themselves crossing paths with Grace and Tyler more than expected. Morning waves turned into short porch chats. Tyler offered to help Ethan fix a loose shutter. Grace complimented Rachel's garden and even asked for tips. They were polite, sure, but there was something else. Something curious in the way Tyler looked at Ethan, like he was watching him, studying him. And Grace, well, she always seemed especially interested in how Ethan and Rachel talked to each other. She'd ask questions like, "How long have you been married?" Or, "What's your secret?" At first, it was flattering. Then it became noticeable. One evening, the neighborhood hosted a small barbecue. Just a few families, folding chairs, and grilled burgers under string lights. Ethan and Rachel sat near the edge of the crowd, side by side, like always. Grace joined them with 2 glasses of lemonade, her expression soft. "You two have this calmness," she said, "like you've been through things, but still hold on to each other." Rachel blinked. "That's kind of you to say." "Mean it," Grace added. "We watch you sometimes from our kitchen window. The way you talk, how you move around each other. It's like you understand things without needing to say them." Rachel gave a polite smile, but something about the way Grace said watch stayed with her. She mentioned it to Ethan later that night as they folded laundry. "They said they watch us." Ethan chuckled. "Maybe they're just curious." New marriages tend to be idealistic. "Still," Rachel said, placing a towel in the basket, "it felt personal." In the days that followed, the attention didn't fade. Grace stopped by with excuses, a borrowed cookbook, helped choosing curtains, but stayed long enough to ask questions about marriage, connection, even intimacy, though never directly. Tyler joined Ethan for a backyard beer and asked out of nowhere, "Do you ever get bored being married so long?" Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Bored? No, it changes, sure. But we grow together." Tyler nodded like he was absorbing advice he didn't expect to hear. It was clear now they weren't just curious. They were drawn in. A week later, Rachel found a note on their porch, handwritten, short. "We admire what you have. Would you ever let us learn from you?" Really learn? No signature. Just a small folded paper under a potted plant. Rachel brought it inside, heart racing. She showed Ethan. He read it twice, then sat in silence. "Do you think they mean—" she began. Ethan shook his head. "I don't know. But they're not hiding their interest anymore." That night, neither of them slept well. The air felt different charged. And somewhere beneath the tension was a strange new energy neither wanted to name. But the next morning, Grace and Tyler appeared at their door like nothing had happened. Smiles, coffee in hand, acting normal to normal. Rachel watched them closely, wondering if the note had been from one of them, or both. And if so, what did they really want? She didn't say anything then, But she knew this was no longer a simple, neighborly friendship. Something deeper was forming. Something emotional, complex, unexpected, and it had only just begun. The days after the mysterious note passed quietly at first, but the atmosphere between Ethan, Rachel, Tyler, and Grace slowly shifted. The young couple next door seemed more present than before, not in a pushy way, but with a sincere eagerness that was hard to ignore. They arrived early on weekends, sometimes offering to help with chores or simply dropping by for casual conversations. At first, Ethan and Rachel were cautious, unsure if this newfound closeness was just friendly or something else entirely. But the warmth in Tyler and Grace's eyes convinced them to stay open. One chilly October afternoon, Ethan was fixing the garden fence when Tyler showed up with a toolbox. "Need a hand?" he asked, already pulling on gloves. Ethan hesitated but nodded, grateful. As they worked, Tyler asked questions not about the fence but about Ethan's marriage. "How do you keep things steady? After all these years, what makes you want to keep going?" Ethan paused. No easy answer came. "I guess it's about respect," he said finally, "and remembering who we were when we started." Tyler nodded slowly, like trying to store those words somewhere important. Rachel watched this exchange from the porch. She felt a strange mix of pride and something else Sunnis, maybe. That evening, Grace invited Rachel over for tea. They sat close, the warmth from the fireplace making their faces glow. Grace spoke quietly, almost hesitantly. "Watching you and Ethan, it's like you have a language only the two of you understand. How did you learn it?" Rachel smiled sadly. "Time, I think. And a lot of patience." That night, as Ethan and Rachel shared dinner, Rachel mentioned their conversation. Ethan listened carefully. "Maybe they want to understand what long-term love really feels like," he said. "Not just the good parts, but everything," Rachel agreed. "But why watch from the sidelines? Why not ask?" They both wondered if there was more behind Tyler and Grace's curiosity. A week later, things became clearer. Tyler and Grace came to Ethan and Rachel's door one evening, hands full of homemade pie. Their eyes held a nervous energy. Grace spoke first. "We've been talking," she said, "Tyler and I, about what you shared with us. About your marriage." She took a deep breath. "We want to learn more. Not just from talking, but by being with you. Watching how you live your love every day. Would you let us?" Rachel felt her heart race. It was not a question she expected. Ethan exchanged a glance with her. After a moment, he replied, "If you're serious about learning, we can find a way." Grace's relief was visible. Tyler's gratitude quiet but clear. From that night on, the four began spending more time together. They shared dinners where conversations flowed from childhood dreams to fears about the future. Tyler and Grace were attentive, sometimes asking questions that surprised Ethan and Rachel with their depth. "How do you handle disappointment?" Grace once asked softly. "What about moments when you don't want to stay, but do anyway?" Ethan answered honestly, "It's hard. We remind ourselves that love isn't always easy. Sometimes it's choosing each other even when it hurts." Tyler nodded thoughtfully, as if the weight of that truth settled inside him. The evenings became lessons. Not through lectures, but through presence. Watching Ethan hold Rachel's hand as she spoke. Seeing how Rachel laughed even when tired. Noticing the small ways Ethan supported her Tyler, and Grace absorbed it all quietly. They saw that love wasn't just about passion or grand gestures. It was about kindness in the little things, patience in the silent moments, and the courage to keep trying. One night, after a long walk beneath a star-filled sky, Grace confided in Rachel, her voice trembling. "Being with you both is changing how I see my marriage. Tyler and I fight less. We listen more, but I feel confused. Sometimes, watching Ethan, I feel something I don't understand." Rachel looked at her, surprised but not judging. "Feelings can be complicated," she said gently. "It's okay not to have all the answers right away." Grace nodded, relief washing over her dot back at home. Rachel shared Grace's words with Ethan. "She's feeling something," she said quietly. "And maybe I'm feeling it too." Watching them, it's stirring something in us. Ethan was silent for a long moment. Maybe it's a reminder, he said finally, that love can still surprise us even after years. The thought unsettled them both, but it was true. Their quiet life was no longer just their own. As the weeks passed, the four grew closer, but with that closeness came new challenges. Boundaries blurred, emotions deepened, and the simple act of watching became more charged. Ethan and Rachel found themselves reflecting on their own feelings more honestly than they had in years. Tyler and Grace learned that love was not only a fairy tale but a daily choice, full of hard work and tenderness. Yet, despite the growing bond, the question remained: how far would this shared journey go? Would watching and learning change everything? Or would it simply bring them back to what they already had? One chilly night, as rain tapped softly against the windows, Grace asked Ethan and Rachel to sit with her and Tyler in the living room. "We don't want to disrupt what you have," she said, "but we need to know if this can work, if we can truly learn from you without losing ourselves." Rachel reached for Ethan's hand. Feeling the weight of those words, Ethan looked at Tyler and Grace, then back at Rachel. "We'll take it one day at a time," he said. "No promises, but honesty above all." Grace smiled, tears in her eyes. Tyler nodded, hopeful. That night, as the rain fell heavier, the four sat together quietly, each aware that their lives were changing. What had started as a simple act of watching had become something much deeper. They were not just neighbors anymore. They were students and teachers, friends and seekers on a path none of them fully understood yet. As autumn deepened, the connection between Ethan, Rachel, Tyler, and Grace grew stronger, but it also became more complicated. Their evenings together were filled with laughter, quiet talks, moments of shared silence that carried more meaning than words. Tyler and Grace were no longer just neighbors trying to understand a long marriage. They were part of an emotional journey none of them had planned. One crisp night, the four sat around Ethan and Rachel's dining table. The flickering candlelight cast soft shadows on their faces, making every expression feel raw and honest. Grace watched Ethan closely as he spoke about the small rituals that kept his marriage alive. The way he made coffee for Rachel every morning, the notes they left for each other, the way they handled hard days together without blame. Grace's voice broke the quiet. "It's beautiful the way you care for each other in little ways. I never realized how much those moments matter." Rachel smiled, touched by Grace's sincerity. "It's easy to overlook them," she admitted, "but they add up." Tyler, leaning back in his chair, nodded slowly. "We want that. The kind of love that's steady, even when it's not exciting." Ethan looked at him thoughtfully. "That kind of love takes time and patience and a willingness to keep choosing each other." The words hung in the air, and for a moment no one spoke. Then Grace, with a quiet voice, said something unexpected. "Being around you both, it's changing us. Tyler and I argue less, listen more. But sometimes I feel things I don't understand. Watching Ethan, I feel drawn to him in a way that confuses me." Rachel blinked, caught off guard by the honesty. "Drawn?" she asked gently. Grace nodded, eyes searching Rachel's face for judgment or rejection. Instead, Rachel felt a wave of empathy. "Feelings can be complicated," she said softly. "It's okay not to understand them right away." Grace smiled faintly, relief visible in her eyes. Later that night, Rachel and Ethan sat together in their living room. Rachel told Ethan about Grace's words, her voice low and hesitant. Ethan listened carefully, the quiet between them heavy with unspoken thoughts. "Maybe Grace's feelings are a reflection of something we've forgotten," he said slowly. "Maybe being around new love reminds us of what we once hadn't, what we still want." Rachel reached for Ethan's hand, and in that small touch was the memory of their early days, the thrill, the hope, the endless possibilities. "I think watching them has made us remember too," she said. "Not just about love, but about ourselves." Days passed, and with them came a new awareness. Ethan found himself more present when Rachel spoke, noticing the way her eyes lit up or softened. Rachel felt a warmth she hadn't realized was missing, a quiet joy in simply being near Ethan again. Tyler and Grace, too, were changing. Their conversations grew deeper, less about surface topics and more about fears, dreams, and vulnerabilities. One afternoon, Tyler invited Ethan for a walk through the neighborhood. As they walked beneath the falling leaves, Tyler admitted, "I used to think love had to be dramatic and full of passion to matter. But watching you two, it's something else. It's quiet strength. It's staying when it's hard." Ethan smiled, glad to hear the honesty. That's the truth. The fireworks fade, but the steady light keeps burning. Meanwhile, Grace and Rachel shared moments alone, often in the kitchen or on the porch, where Grace would ask questions about marriage, about forgiveness, about keeping hope alive. Rachel answered with a kind of wisdom only years of experience could bring. Never judging, always listening. Yet, despite the closeness, a gentle tension settled beneath the surface. The feelings Grace spoke of didn't disappear, and Rachel found herself thinking about them more than she expected. Sometimes, when Grace laughed or looked at Ethan, Rachel caught a flicker of something unspoken. And Tyler, watching quietly, seemed aware too. One night, after a shared dinner, Grace pulled Rachel aside in the soft glow of the porch light. "I don't want to cause problems," she said, voice trembling slightly. "But sometimes I wonder if feelings are more than admiration. I don't know what to do with them." Rachel reached out and took Grace's hand gently. "Feelings are messy," she said. "What matters is what we choose to do with them." Grace nodded, comforted by the kindness. That evening, Rachel spoke honestly with Ethan. "There's something shifting," she said. "Not just between us, but with them too. I feel it." Ethan took a deep breath. "Maybe it's a sign we all need to face what we've been avoiding. Not just about love, but about ourselves." The weeks that followed were a mix of clarity and confusion. The four shared moments of joy and moments of quiet reflection. They grew closer, yet new boundaries had to be respected. They talked openly about their feelings, fears, and hopes. The journey wasn't easy, but it was real. One rainy evening, as the storm raged outside, the four sat together in Ethan and Rachel's living room. Grace spoke softly. "We don't want to hurt anyone. We only want to learn how to love better." Ethan smiled gently. "You've already learned a lot. Love is messy and complicated, but it's also the most beautiful thing we have." Tyler nodded. "We're grateful for you both. For your honesty, for letting us see what love looks like beyond the surface." Rachel looked around at the four faces illuminated by the soft glow of the fire. Despite the complexity, despite the uncertainty, there was something hopeful in the room. Something that promised growth, healing, and perhaps new beginnings. As the night wore on, the rain softened and the quiet settled around them like a blanket. They knew the path ahead wouldn't be simple, but for the first time in a long time, it felt full of possibility, and none of them wanted to turn back. The rain poured steadily outside. Ethan and Rachel's home that Friday night. But inside, the atmosphere was warm and alive. The four of them, Ethan, Rachel, Tyler, and Grace, gathered in the living room, sharing stories, laughter, and a quiet sense of connection that had grown stronger over the past weeks. What started as curiosity and observation had blossomed into something more complex and deeply emotional for everyone involved. Tyler broke the comfortable silence first. I used to think love had to be exciting all the time. Big gestures, fireworks, and constant passion." He looked around the room, his gaze resting on Ethan. "But watching you two, I realize it's something else. It's steady. It's staying even when it's hard. It's choosing each other every day." Ethan nodded slowly. "That's exactly it. The excitement fades, but the quiet loyalty, that's what lasts." Rachel felt her heart swell with a mixture of relief and something she hadn't felt in a long time, hope. She looked at Grace, whose eyes were bright and a little misty. "This," Rachel said softly, "this time together has made me think about us in ways I didn't expect. About who we were and who we still can be. Not because someone is watching, but because we've remembered why we chose each other in the first place." Grace swallowed hard, her voice barely a whisper. We never meant to cause tension between you. We just wanted to learn. To understand, Risha reached out and took Grace's hand gently. You did more than that? You reminded us of something important. The room felt quiet, but the silence was comfortable, full of understanding. Outside, the storm raged on, but inside, something peaceful settled between them. Later that night, after Tyler and Grace had left, Ethan and Rachel sat together on their porch, wrapped in a shared blanket. The night air was cool and fresh, carrying the scent of rain and earth. Rachel leaned her head on Ethan's shoulder. Do you think it's strange how all of this happened? Ethan smiled softly. Maybe, but sometimes life surprises us in the best ways when we're willing to be open. She nodded. I think I forgot what it felt like to really want to be with you. Not just because we're married, but because we love each other. He kissed the top of her head. Me too. Days turned into weeks, and though Tyler and Grace became less frequent visitors, the bond they had formed remained. It wasn't about watching anymore. It was about living authentically, openly. And with intention, Ethan and Rachel began making small changes in their daily lives, taking longer walks together, trying new things, and talking about dreams they hadn't spoken of in years. The quiet love they had rediscovered felt fresh and alive. One sunny afternoon, as they walked hand in hand through a nearby park, Rachel stopped and smiled at Ethan. Thank you for being patient with me, for staying. He squeezed her hand. Always. Meanwhile, Tyler and Grace worked on their own relationship too. The lessons they learned from Ethan and Rachel helped them communicate better and appreciate the steady rhythm of a lasting love rather than chasing constant excitement. The neighborhood. Notice the subtle changes too. The way Ethan and Rachel looked at each other again. The warmth that seemed to surround them both.